What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. I'll be doing the same style of video as I did yesterday, going over your most commonly asked about wide receivers and giving my take on their rest of season value. But before we do that, have to start things off with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat was Alvin Kamara has the most receiving yards among running backs, but who has the second most? Most of you got this one right is J.D. McKissick, but Cringe Kid was the first to get that one right. Today's stat, which wide receiver led the league in weighted opportunity rating last week? All right, so the players you guys have asked me to go over are the Bengals wide receivers, now that Burrow is done for the year, Kenny Golladay, Jakobi Meyers, Julio Jones, and then an update on the Bucs wide receiver core. So we will start things off with the Bengals wide receivers because, of course, if you have not heard, Joe Burrow is going to miss the rest of the season with a torn ACL, MCL, PCL, and meniscus. An absolutely brutal injury. He is not going to be ready for week 1 next season. It is very possible that he doesn't return until well into 2021, and he might not even return in 2021. Obviously, he's going to have the surgery, I believe, sometime in like mid-December, and we need to see how that goes, see how his rehab goes. There's a wide range of outcomes here, but I think the biggest thing is that this is a horrible injury, and he's going to be out for a long time. And so when we look at these Bengals receivers, obviously their value is hurt a lot this season, but this is something we're going to have to think about next summer, going into next year, the possibility that we see 1 to 2 months still without Joe Burrow. So this is something that's going to last a long time. It was not a great injury, and you know, obviously we hope that he makes a full recovery, but we need to talk about this team while he's out. And this really does change everything. I don't think we were giving Joe Burrow enough credit. He was having just such a fantastic rookie season, and just with how quickly he was able to progress as an NFL quarterback, it was just incredible to watch, you know, and the Bengals were able to rank second in pass attempts per game because they trusted him. They trusted him to drop back a ton, and he was producing. You know, he was looking to shatter a bunch of different rookie quarterback records. So yeah, the downgrade going from Burrow to Ryan Finley is going to just tank the value of Higgins, Boyd, Green when Mixon returns. But right now, Bernard, just everyone sees a huge hit. I do not believe that A.J. Green is rosterable at this point. He was already on the fringe with Burrow, and this pushes him outside of roster consideration for me, unless you are in a very competitive 14-team league or basically any 16-team league, but 10, 12-team leagues, I don't think you can roster A.J. Green at this point. I have not done my full rest of season rankings yet, but I have done a preliminary run through wide receivers, and I have dropped both Boyd and Higgins to around the wide receiver 30. I do not know exactly where they're going to fall, but it's going to be in that range. 30 to low 30s is how I see it looking, and that kind of makes sense. I think that in a good matchup, you can play these guys in the flex still because they are still going to throw the ball a lot. And while Finley is not good, this wide receiver core is pretty clearly down to Higgins and Boyd. I mean, A.J. Green is just dust at this point. And so if most of these targets are going to Higgins and Boyd, we know that they don't really have a tight end. They're going to pepper with targets. They're still going to get looks. They're going to be less valuable, less touchdown upside. But again, in a good matchup, you'll still be able to play these guys. But if you were heading into every week with Higgins and Boyd as a wide receiver 2, up until right now, that's been fine because, I mean, Higgins has been producing phenomenally, and Boyd has shown a very, very consistent floor and a nice amount of upside when he scores. But now I would not feel good about my roster if I had one of them as my wide receiver 2. If that means you need to make a trade and you're still allowed to make a trade, maybe you have to do that because, again, I don't think you're winning a championship with one of them in your wide receiver 2 slot. Whereas going into this, I thought that was certainly possible, that you could win a championship with one of them at your 2. but you're going to need to make some sort of move if that's the case for you, because maybe I'm wrong and Finley is going to be good, but he's just been very, very bad to this point in his career. So I would just be a little bit surprised if they retained their value. I wouldn't even say a little bit surprised. I'd be very surprised if they retain their value. So they're more in flex consideration moving forward. And so if that's where you had them before, well, then that's fine. But if you have him at the wide receiver 2 spot, you might need to make a move. Next up, we've got Kenny Golladay, and Golladay has been on holiday for a bit, but it seems like he's close to return. The problem is we can't really tell if this is more contract related or injury related, because obviously he's been hurt, he hasn't been practicing, but he's been out for a while for an injury that we thought he'd be returning by now with. And so with the Lions also playing on Thanksgiving, well, if he didn't practice, later last week, he didn't play in the game, they're not going to practice on Monday. So we're only left with a Tuesday and a Wednesday practice. And Wednesday is just going to be a walkthrough. And so there's really only the Tuesday practice. I record these on Tuesday, so I'll probably write a note in the description if he does return to practice and it looks like he's going to play. But if he doesn't practice, you guys are watching this, he didn't practice on Tuesday, that's a problem. At this point, it seems like if he doesn't practice on Tuesday, he's not going to be out there Thanksgiving. Maybe they view this as all right, we're 4-6. We're not a very good team. Why would we rush Kenny Golladay back to the Thanksgiving game? So I do think that at least this is a situation where it would be great if he went out there and played, but the fact that they have been holding him out, to me, signals that he will not be back unless he's 100%. So, like we'll talk about with Julio Jones, there are teams that will bring players back when they are not 100% healthy, and we're put in a difficult situation because we don't know if they're going to be a decoy, if they're even going to play, if they're going to be just limited while they're playing. We have no idea. But teams like the Packers, well, we know. When the Packers bring someone back from injury, they're back from injury. They're good to go. They're 100%. We can trust them. I think that is going to be the case with Golladay. So if you're wondering, hey, why am I even keeping this guy? Because can I trust him when he comes back? I think yes. I think as soon as he is active for a game, there's just no way with how bad they are. They have no chance at the playoffs. Maybe internally they think they do, but they're not making the playoffs. And so there's no way they're bringing Golladay back unless he is 100%. So until we see him practicing in full, I don't expect him to return. We saw him get, 1 or 2 practices in last week, but until we see him practicing in full, I would not expect him to return. But once he does return, I think we can play him because he's going to be good and he's going to be fully healthy when he's out there. As for trading him, because there's so much unknown, I would be fine trading him away because, again, he's got that name value. It seems like he's close to return, and so if someone out there really wants him, I'm fine trading him away because there's a lot of uncertainty with Golladay. But I would not be trading for him, even if you think he returns this week or next week. I just wouldn't do it because it is just, in general, a losing strategy to trade for injured players. There's always so much unknown. Could Golladay just go on the IR in like 2 days? Yes. We have no idea. We don't know exactly how injured he is. And so trading for a player, especially one with name value, while they're hurt, is just not a good idea. It's going to hurt you more than it helps you. But again, when he returns, I think he's going to be roughly a wide receiver 2. But if you can get wide receiver 2 value for him right now, I'm not against it because there is so much ambiguity with his health. Next up, we have Jakobi Meyers, and he had been just dominating prior to last week, but then he posted 3 for 38 and 0. His worst stat line since being played effectively. Caught all 3 targets, but he was a target hog, just an incredible receiver going into last week. 3 targets is like, oh, what happened? But we have talked about for a while now this season the difference between the Texans' pass defense while Roby is playing versus when Roby is out. When he is playing, they're fantastic at limiting opposing wide receiver 1s. When he's out, they're one of the teams that we want to attack with wide receiver 1s because they're not good at defending them. Well, he was active on Sunday, and that impacted Jakobi Meyers. He'll have another brutal matchup in Week 14 against Ramsey, in Week 16 against Tre'Davious White, So it's not exactly the most ideal playoff schedule, but it's also extremely unlikely that you're relying on Jakobi Meyers as your wide receiver 1. I doubt anyone is, or your wide receiver 2. I mean, the odds are you picked him up for free off waivers or for very cheap off waivers while we were talking about him, and you had someone else you can start. And so in all likelihood, he's been your flex or your second flex. So these tough matchups, yes, they hurt, but they're going to impact you a lot less than if you were relying on him as a 1 and he's going out there and potentially done it. The upside that he brings is still there in these matchups. It's much less likely he'll hit that upside, but the upside is still there because he is such a high opportunity player. He's getting so much volume in this offense. And so I'm not going to feel good about him when he's facing off against Ramsey and White, but I'll feel good about him in the other weeks. I still think he's pretty clearly the best wide receiver on the Patriots roster. He is most certainly better than N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry is trash at this point. I've written him off. And so when we see Edelman's injured and Bird is fine, but I think Bird had that game because Myers was getting shut down and they had to throw to someone because, again, Harry's trash. And so Myers, when he's not in a brutal matchup, is still someone that I trust to play in the flex. If you needed him as a wide receiver 2 when he's not playing Ramsey or White, I think you can do that. I think he has enough of a floor and enough upside. But in those matchups, I still think you could use him if you needed to. But again, I don't think you do need to because you definitely add him off free agency. And I'd be very surprised if up until that point in the season, you didn't have 2 wide receivers you could start over him. So next up is Julio Jones. And I already alluded to the Julio Jones, my thoughts on that. I really don't like when teams bring back players early. But I have conflicting thoughts about Julio Jones as a player. Obviously, I respect him so much for trying to play through these lower body injuries. Last week was not the first time he suffered a hamstring injury or a foot injury. He's clearly been injured, but he's tried to go out there and play through them. I respect him for doing that. I have had plenty of soft tissue injuries. I know how difficult it can be to play through them at times. But there needs to be a balance between playing through an injury, trying to get a win for your team, and going out there on 4th down of garbage time when you're like a 3-7 team. He should not have gone back into that game on Sunday. The game was effectively over, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And so when you already have a hamstring injury, what are you doing? Why are you going back into that game? I know he's a competitor. I know he wants to be out there. You have to let hamstring injuries heal. It is not worth going back out there in the 4th quarter of a game you're going to lose in a season you're not going to make the playoffs, and now you re-injure it, or you have a very high chance of re-injuring it, and now you're jeopardizing future games for what? They weren't going to win that game. And so he could be out for a longer time because when you aggravate hamstring injuries, especially when you already had one earlier in the season, that's going to hurt your recovery time. The thing with Julio is that they love to do this. Like, they love when he's hurt, being like, all right, we're just going to have you not practice Monday through Thursday. We'll see if you can log a limited session on Friday. We'll make it questionable for the game. We'll activate you. And then what do? I mean, it's such a difficult decision because we obviously don't know how bad the hamstring, like obviously there's different levels of hamstring injuries. And so when he has the severe ones, he's definitely out. But as he's recovering from these, if he just logs a limited practice on Friday, and then they say it's a game time decision, and then he plays. They're not a team, like I said, where the Packers, if this was the Packers and Julio's out there, Julio's healthy. Okay, the Packers hold Julio out this week. But the Falcons are like, oh, you can walk? Okay, well now I guess it's up to you and see if you can play. And that's just not smart, and it's not helpful for fantasy because we have no idea. And so watch that this week. That's basically all I can tell you is watch his practices this week. Maybe he returns on Tuesday, he practices Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it's like, all right, he's probably good to go if he practiced that much. But honestly, it's very likely that he only logs 1 or 2 limited practices this week. He goes into the game as a game time decision, and then if he's activated, I mean, you're just going to have to make the call. It's going to be down to a risk thing with you. How much risk do you want to take? Because Julio's a player who could log a healthy practice on Friday, have 1 for 20 on Sunday, and then you're upset because you benched players who are healthy. But then the reverse could happen. You know, he could log a limited practice on Friday. He could go out there and have 10 for 150 and 2 touchdowns, and you're like, why did I bench Julio Jones? So I understand it's very frustrating. We're put in an impossible situation. Hopefully they just rule him out and then we don't have to make this call. But if that happens also, I want to note, Matt Ryan sees a massive decrease in his production when Julio is out. Ridley would see a nice bump in targets, but you'd obviously be playing him whether Julio's in or Julio's out. But again, you're going to have to make that call, and it's going to come down to the risk that you have. If you don't think you can win without him, I guess you're playing him, but it's going to come down to how healthy you think he is and how much risk you want to take. But we'll go over our final wide receiver core, I guess, for this one, and that's you guys asked for an update on the Bucs wide receivers. But honestly, nothing has really changed for me. So last week, my take was that the order of value should be Godwin, then Brown, then Evans, with Brown and Evans being effectively the same value, with all 3 being wide receiver 2s, but with my exact rankings being Godwin at 17, Brown 22, Evans 24. And so Brown and Evans were closer to flex, but I guess low end to the flex, with Godwin pretty securely a wide receiver 2. Well, this week, Godwin finishes wide receiver 17. Evans also finishes wide receiver 24, so those were exactly correct. And then Brown was the wide receiver 35, but it's worth noting he had the 5th most targets on the week, and 13 targets is a lot, and Brady did miss him a few times on some deep balls that would have easily made his day. So if you're expecting things to be like really changed this week, I mean, they're just not going to. That's exactly where I had them. I do have a little bit more confidence in Antonio Brown after 13 targets, after getting these deep looks, after getting an increase in his snap share. I still want to point out that when they get into the red zone, it's not Antonio Brown time. It's effectively only Mike Evans time. Like, they just pepper him with targets. Brown is not on the field a lot of the time when they get in close, and so that's going to cap his upside. But 13 targets is 13 targets, you know, and he's going to hit on a deep ball from time to time. And so I have a little bit more confidence in him, more confidence in his upside. I was hesitant on his upside last week, but I think Godwin and Evans are the same. All these guys are basically wide receiver 2s, just like they were last week. They're going to have spikes. They're not going to have super low floors because, I mean, these guys get so much of the volume. But also remember, playoff schedule. I pointed this out a few weeks ago. Vikings, Falcons, Lions in the fantasy playoffs. They're all going to have really nice floors, really nice ceilings in those matchups. Does it mean that all of them are going to erupt? Well, no. I mean, all of them just like can't go off every single week. But they're all going to have a lot of value in those games. Also worth pointing out, week 13 is their bye. They have a very late bye. And so you got to realize the game before the fantasy playoffs, you're not going to have any Bucs players. If that's a problem for you, make a plan right now. Like, understand that's going to happen. But hopefully, you know, you've secured your spot in the playoffs and you're like, listen, I don't even care. You know, I have Antonio Brown and Godwin on my team. I've already made the playoffs. They have these dream matchups. I'm set. I hope that's the case for some of you, or maybe you only have one, or maybe you have Brady. But the point is, realize they have the bye in week 13. Then realize weeks 14, 15, 16, really nice matchups. And so wide receiver 2s for all of them. But in those games, they're going to be high upside wide receiver 2s. So I hope that was helpful for a lot of you. We still have the wide receiver and running back start sit videos. So if you have more questions on players, they might be answered in those. But that's the end of this one. Hope you all did enjoy. If you did, then how about hitting that like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.